Rollo Haynes, owner, proprietor. Well, just us two this morning. You sure you want to do this? This place ain't for the faint-hearted.
I'm sure I can handle it.
Not everyone can.
Hey everyone, I'm Lucy.
And I'm Oscar.
And we've just seen the Black Mirror Season 4 finale episode. You should watch it last. Definitely watch it last.
Definitely.
Black Museum, which has messed us up. But we're here to break the episode down and uncover all the Easter eggs you might have missed. And believe us, there are tons in this episode.
There are a ton. But before we go on, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're gonna have plenty more videos on Black Mirror. We're gonna have theories, we're gonna have Easter eggs, and loads more. So hit that subscribe button.
So without further ado, here's our breakdown of Black Museum. If you haven't seen it,
Go watch it.
Spoilers! So like the Christmas special, White Christmas, Black Museum is 3 stories in one. And it explores, it's a theme that's obviously been explored with Black Mirror before. So in previous Black Mirror episodes, you have this incredible neurological tech, you know, essentially like VR implanted into your brain straight away. Into your mind. This episode kind of explores the moral and ethical dilemmas of creating that technology, developing it, and testing it on humans. So these people's stories and experiences were completely instrumental in the creation of this technology, in bringing it to mass market to make sure it's safe for everyone. But these are the stories that are ultimately failed experiments that are going to be forgotten to the annals of time.
And these 3 stories are told through the eyes of Rollo Haynes, who's the weird, eccentric, oddball curator of the Black Museum, who previously was the sort of face of the faceless organization that is TCKR, which is the company that developed all of these different ideas.
And as Black Museum covers 3 stories, we're going to break them down individually. That way we can go into more detail.
All right, so Rollo tells these stories to a wandering British traveller called Nish, who is driving around the hills here in America, and she stops to charge her car. And while she's doing that, she pops into the Black Museum for a quick chat and a cup of tea. See
what's about.
And Rollo launches into the first story, which is all about Dawson's symphatic diagnoser.
So this is a piece of technology. So Rollo explains that his background is in medtech. It's an experimental piece of technology. They implant a neural implant into a doctor, Dr. Peter Dawson. He works on the ER. He doesn't have the best
He's not a very good doctor.
Mortality rate for his patients, let's put it that way. But this neural implant means that he can understand and experience the pain of people, whoever is wearing like the corresponding cap, which is the symphatic diagnoser. So
Dawson can feel all sorts of physical sensations from his patients using this device, and that goes for both pain and also pleasure. So
useful for being a doctor. You can diagnose and tell exactly where someone's pain is. They might not even be able to tell you, so it's super useful that way.
Definitely. But he starts to use it in the bedroom with his girlfriend, which he obviously enjoys. But things start to go awry when a patient is wearing the diagnoser and they die.
Yeah.
And
so their brain gets flooded with endorphins upon the moment of death, and obviously Dawson experiences this too. But because the patient died, it cracks his mind, it cracks the implant, and things get a bit messed up in his brain. And instead of having a pain reaction to a painful stimuli, he has a pleasure reaction.
He starts to enjoy it a little bit too much. It's a bit of a problem when you're a doctor who enjoys his patients being in pain, right? So he is told to go home. He's not allowed to come into work. So get around, thank God. So to get around that, he starts experimenting on himself. He starts cutting himself and inflicting pain on himself to try and get that rush again.
And as he's a doctor, he obviously knows how much his body can take how much blood he can lose before dying.
Exactly.
But it's not enough. He needs that big, big rush.
So he goes out and he finds a homeless person and kills them. He puts a drill into their chest, and it's not fun. It's not a nice time for anyone there. But obviously the police catch him, and that's the end of him.
Yeah, he is kind of like just stuck in this coma now. And Rollo Haynes makes a joke about the state of him while he's in the coma, but we don't think that's true.
But the thing of it is, they say he still has that look on his face. Blissed out. Still riding that high.
So our second story follows a couple called Jack and Carrie, and they meet at a party and they go into a bedroom and do it. And they eventually have a son named Parker.
Yeah.
And they're living a happy, idyllic life together,
Lovely
the
time.
three of them, until Carrie gets run over by a truck and put into a coma. Now she can communicate with Jack via this weird neural link system that allows her to say like yes or no.
Yeah, that's it. That's all she can say.
But they want more, right?
Yeah. Enter Rollo Haynes,
Hey.
snake oil salesman and developer at TCKR.
Ticker.
Who says to Jack that he can transfer Carrie's consciousness into his. So she's essentially sharing his brain with him. She can feel what he feels.
Because they want her to be able to experience growing up with their son, right?
Yeah, she's obviously in a coma, has no idea what her son even looks like anymore. So she immediately is like, yes, green light, let's do this. And so they transplant her consciousness into Jack's. And it starts off great. She can see her son, she can hug Parker, but it very quickly, that sheen comes off.
He gets a bit sick of her being in his head all the time, right?
I guess because she can't control what he does, and so she's like, pick the toilet seat back up, or like don't
wash your hands.
Yeah, or like don't, it's essentially backseat parenting.
Yeah.
Backseat driving in your head the whole time. But Rollo has a solution for this. He suggests to Jack that he can pause Carrie, which he does, for 2 months.
2 months is a long time, right? Except it isn't for Carrie, because for her it's like she closes her eyes and wakes back up again, and it's 2 months later, and it's Halloween, and she's very confused at the pumpkins that are on show.
So obviously, with the ability to pause Carrie, they kind of come up with this new solution. They go through counselling and they come up with a solution. It's basically like having divorced parents, they have to spend time together as a family, all three of them, on the weekends, but during the week, that is Jack's alone time in his head.
So it's at this point that Jack starts to move on. He starts to develop feelings for his neighbour, who they eventually start dating, but she is obviously not 100% satisfied with sharing her time with Jack with Carrie, who's still inside his head.
So Rollo has 2 suggestions for the family. The first one is they can delete Carrie completely, delete this, which the girlfriend's happy about, but obviously Jack...
Yeah, Jack still has some loyalty for Carrie, right?
Yeah, absolutely, it's the mother of his child. Or the other option is to transfer her consciousness somewhere else. Now, in the original procedure, her body was euthanized after her consciousness was transferred out of it. It can now be put into a stuffed toy monkey. And what's interesting about this is that she wanted to get out of her comatose state because she could only have 2 options to interact with the wider world.
It's like the green light or the red light.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And now, as she's been put into the monkey, she once again only has 2 options.
Monkey loves you.
What was that?
Monkey needs a hug.
So she can't have in-depth communication, but she can still feel. The monkey has haptic feedback, right? So she can feel the hugs that Parker is giving her, which he does, first of all, because it's a new toy and it's amazing and it's a big old monkey and it's cute as hell.
And the monkey talks to you.
Yeah, but eventually he gets bored of the monkey and throws it away, and Carrie is feeling a little bit unloved at that point, I imagine.
Yep, and she's stuck in there, and as we found out from Rollo back in the Black Museum, it's illegal for him to delete her from there, so she is...
Still alive.
Still alive
Still
inside
in that
that monkey. Which is, just...
It's depressing, isn't it, really?
Sad and depressing, really. And the final story is actually one that's been seeded in the other 2 stories. You might have noticed on the TV, they are investigating the case of a missing weather woman who was brutally murdered and her body dismembered. It turns out the murderer was a man named Clayton Leigh, even though there are conflicting opinions on that because of DNA at the scene. But Clayton Leigh is in prison. He's on death row for the murder of this weather woman. And of course, enter Rollo Haynes.
Rollo Haynes.
He wants to ask for the rights for the digital consciousness of Clayton Leigh because he wants to put it in the Black Museum as an exhibit. Realizing that this is a way for his family to get money after he's gone, Clayton agrees, and just before he's about to die in the electric chair, Rollo downloads his consciousness onto a drive.
Yep, and he takes that USB stick back to the Black Museum, where he uploads it and forms a weird sort of like hologram, right, of Clayton in the chair, where people can come into the museum and they can reenact the execution of Clayton and pull the lever themselves and get that thrill of killing someone, I guess. And as soon as people realise that it's not real, it's just this digital version, they're like, oh yeah, I'll do it. And it's pretty sick, I'm not gonna lie.
So after being incarcerated in this digital prison for a long time, Clayton is just electrocuted day in, day out. Some people as well electrocute him for longer than they are supposed to. And as a result of all this, his mental capacities are just worn down completely. And by the time his wife comes to visit, he is a shell of who he was before. He, can barely talk. He can't recognize her. He can barely move. And she actually kills herself after seeing this not long after.
So it's at this point that the rug is pulled from beneath us, and nice rug pull, and Nish reveals that she is actually the daughter of Clayton. She goes back into her American accent, and she reveals that she's poisoned Rollo earlier on in the episode.
That's why he's getting all sweaty.
Yeah. And at this point, she uploads his consciousness into the digital version of Clayton and then electrocutes them both, killing Clayton as a mercy, and then also killing Rollo, but then he's weirdly not killed, but also killed, and he's dead. And then there's a little souvenir that she gets at the end with like a screaming, perpetually dying version of Rollo inside a little keyring. What a lovely souvenir when you go to the museum.
Lovely memento.
Exit through the gift shop, please.
And as she sets the Black Museum on fire, because obviously all of this technology and all of the suffering that's associated with it can't continue. And as she's driving away, you realize that she's taken CARRIE out with her, because obviously she's still alive, so she can't leave her to die in the fire. And as she's driving away, we realize something.
There's a little voice inside of her head.
Nish's mum is in her head, just like CARRIE was in Jack's.
How'd I do, Mom? All good?
Just great, honey. I'm proud of you.
Aw, thanks.
So this third story is a nice little culmination of the first two. So in Dr. Dawson's, it is the transferring of sensations of pleasure and pain between two people. In the second, it is the transfer of full consciousness,
right?
And in the third one, it's a nice mix of both. Okay, let's break down all the Easter eggs that we spotted. There's loads.
So the song playing at the very beginning of the episode is There's Always Something There to Remind Me by Dionne Warwick, which is obviously a reference to the fact that Nish has her mum inside her head.
The petrol station that she pulls up at is called BRB Connect, which could be a reference to the season 2 episode Be Right Back.
And then inside the Black Museum, we see Victoria Spillane from the season 2 episode White Bear.
And this is where the floodgates really open for references to previous Black Mirror episodes. And this corridor is clearly inspired by the mansion from Playtest, so the decor looks the same. There are people holding knives. As we know at the end of that episode, the guy gets stabbed with a big knife. And there's those creepy mannequins that look like the spooky people from the mansion.
And then onto the museum floor itself, we see the killer robot bee from the season 3 episode Hate in the Nation.
Also in a display cabinet, you can see the busted up Archangel tech pad from season 4's episode Archangel.
And then there's another display cabinet with the bathtub murder scene from season 4 episode Crocodile.
You can also see a mannequin dummy depicting the hanging of Tom Blythe, the artist who blackmailed the Prime Minister into having it off with a pig in the very first episode of Black Mirror, the national anthem.
We also see the shotgun and outfit from the season 2 episode White Bear.
You can see the DNA mod device for Infinity, complete with Tommy's lollipop from the season 4 episode USS Callister.
And then there's a reference to the season 3 episode San Junipero when Rollo says that he worked out of St. Juniper's.
I worked out of St. Juniper's. It's kind of like a university hospital, sweet setup. Part of the ADDICT, actually.
When Rollo is explaining the neural implant tech to Dr. Dawson, he has 2 lab rats called Kenny and Hector, who are the names of the 2 characters from Shut Up and Dance.
So interestingly, the neural implant tech is actually behind the ear rather than at the temple, which a lot of the other technology that we've seen this season. And this could be a reference to the season 1 episode, The Entire History of You, which had a grain technology implanted behind the ear, similar to this one.
CCKR adapted it and fine-tuned it, and it's how they wound up with the digital consciousness transfers. What they call cookies today.
Like when they upload old people to the cloud?
And we see Rollo refer to a digital consciousness transferer called Cookies, which we've previously seen in the Christmas special, White Christmas.
When Nish asks, like when they upload old people to the cloud, it's clearly a nod to San Junipero. When Jack and Carrie are communicating while Carrie is in a coma, they have a comms box that is just like in San Junipero.
We talk on the comm box.
And just as Rollo refers to this digital consciousness transfer technology, he's standing right in front of the final exhibit where he will unknowingly meet his end by having his consciousness digitally transferred.
And we see Jack reading a comic book that's called 15 Million Merits, which of course is the title of an episode from season 1.
That Raymond's milkshake is super popular because we can see it again in this episode. Raymond is obviously a character from Men Against Fire, but we also see this milkshake in the USS Callister. And here's the big one that ties everything together. The company that Rollo works for is TCKR, who also make San Junipero. So that's it for season 4 of Black Mirror. We've done detailed breakdowns of every single episode, so if you haven't seen them all, make sure to catch up.
And there was a ton of stuff in this episode. We listed everything that we found, but if we missed something, let us know in the comments, or you can catch us on Twitter. I'm at DeusZ.
And I'm at Lucy James Games. And make sure to stick around on GameSpot Universe because we're going to be doing a bunch of videos including all the Easter eggs from across the season and how everything in Black Mirror ties together in one shiny bow. So make sure to stick around. See you next time.